this kind of thing, so that they could blunt the thrust of what King was doing. But at the point that they came up with the idea of the Poor People's March, and they started talking about Hispanic people, black people, low-income white people, ethnics were involved, a tremendous coalition that status quo people never want to see come together in this country. And as a consequence, King became, in the eyes of these very fanatical people, he became dangerous.
I mean, it's some heavy stuff. You're talking about redistributing the wealth of this nation. And we couldn't believe our government would do the kinds of things in those days that they were doing. You know, we knew it because it was happening to us. But you couldn't get news people or anybody to believe, you know, until they started mining the harbors in Nicaragua and doing things, and the CIA killing people and stuff. But you just, Americans wouldn't do that. So you said, oh, America, they wouldn't kill a black leader. Right, okay.
In 1967, James Earl Ray escaped from Jefferson State Penitentiary in Missouri. His first stop is Chicago, where he works as a dishwasher. He soon flees to Canada, where he claims to meet a man who would only identify himself as Raoul. Ray begins to work for Raoul, carrying contraband. Raoul provides Ray with money in exchange for Ray's help. Ray, a wanted fugitive, is hopeful that Raoul will provide him with a new identity and a passport.
James Earl Ray, in his own book, Tennessee Waltz, names the person that introduced him to this shadowy figure, Raoul, as David Gravier. And David Gravier, interestingly enough, is a director in a financial operation, a bank, a specific bank, that is financially tied and founded under Credit Suisse. And Credit Suisse is the financing arm for many international intelligence operations, including, most importantly, being the financial base for a firm called Permanent Industrial Exhibits, or Permindex, which is named by many of the Kennedy researchers as one of the firms operating on the level of the mechanics and placing the assassins in the John F. Kennedy assassination.
We're getting ready to demand jobs and income. We're tired of working full-time jobs for part-time income. All right. We are tired of living in run-down, dilapidated, rat-infested shacks and slums. We are tired of our children having to attend overcrowded, inferior schools.
Memphis is sort of seen as an aberration and is not seen as an integral part of the movement up to that time. I've long recognized that from many, many different directions, because it was a strike and it was workers, and workers at the bottom.
Well, the sanitation department, the public works department, was 100% black. It was low paid, it was unskilled, it was made up to a large extent of older men. They were men who had worked in the public works department for a very, very long time. There had been attempts to organize for 5 years prior to 1968, a sanitation worker named T.O. Jones, who was really the unsung hero of the early strike. T.O. Jones began to try to organize for various reasons.
Their petitions fell on deaf ears, from the mayor to the person in charge of public works to the city council.
The working conditions, for instance, at various times there was no workman's compensation, so if you hurt your back picking up garbage, and in the early days, of course, they were throwing garbage cans around and throwing them onto the truck. There was no workman's compensation. The salary was quite low. There were very, very few benefits, and nothing seemed to be getting any better.
And we just got tired. We had meetings and discussed it and says, we're going to do something about it. Said there ain't but one thing to do, is just to make our move. And it was people that had large families and everything, and to make up their mind to go out there. And you know, a man has got to have a strong mind to go out in the street, leave his job, and go out in the street.
We felt like we would have to let the city know that because we were sanitation workers, we were human beings. The signs that we were carrying said that I am a man, and we was going to demand to have the same dignity and the same courtesy any other citizen of Memphis has.
It has been held that all employees of a municipality may not strike for any purpose. This, of course, includes employees of the Public Works Department. This is not New York, and nothing will be gained by ignoring our laws.
They tagged Henry Loeb throughout the strike with the plantation owner mentality. And indeed, Henry Loeb was that. It was the old idea that if our boys are having trouble, then we go and talk to our boys and we solve their little problems for them, and our boys fall back into line. What shocked Henry almost from the beginning was that the boys didn't fall back into line. Enough has never been said about the courage of the individual sanitation workers here in that strike. These were uneducated, unskilled, low-paid men who scrabbled for every bit that they could get. They went out on strike fearfully, their families even more fearful, I think. There were no benefits. There were some benefits for the union, but very, very few benefits. And somehow they had the backbone to stay together and hold out.
If work is not resumed by 7 a.m. Thursday, we will immediately begin doing our duty by replacing these people who have chosen to abandon their jobs and their rights.
When a public official orders a group of men to get back to work and then we'll talk, and treats them as though they are not men, that's a racist point of view. And no matter how you dress it up in terms of whether or not a union can organize, it's still racism. For at the heart of racism is the idea that a man is not a man, that a person is not a person.
There had been a meeting downtown at the auditorium of strikers and their supporters, and at that point, that was early on in the strike, and there were a few black ministers in, but there weren't terribly many black ministers in yet. The city council had just rejected the plea for some kind of negotiated settlement, and that was announced to the crowd. And the people at the meeting were kind of upset, so they asked for and got permission to march back to one of the black churches, march downtown.
We was marching peaceful down the streets, and one police was in a car. And Miss Crenshaw, one of the ladies, was with us. The man run the car up on a hill. He bumped a hill 2 or 3 times. So T.O. Jones says, Mr. Officer, don't run up and bump the lady's heel with that car. And so he did again. And that's what started the mace.
I don't know who it was. Somebody hollered, said, break it up. And they just broke right on us. And honest for God in heaven, I got my suit at home right now I had on. And smell it. You can smell it. Them many years, now I won't put it on. And they sprayed so much of that stuff down my collar until I could feel it look like running down my back.
That was the turning point, because at that point the black ministers got up and they said, if in this city of Memphis black ministers can be maced with impunity, then no one is safe.
King wanted to be there and did not see it as an accident. His only reservations were about how to do it with the very tight schedule in March that was already formulated, and very hard-nosed how to do it in the light of his schedule in March and how soon he could do it.
This strike and the killing of Dr. King, it's a very short period of time. I mean, we're really talking about 2 months. All this is happening within 2 months. It happens very quickly. The polarization happens terribly quickly. Dr. King is brought in because the strike needs outside support. You have to remember where we were in February of '68 was the Tet Offensive in Vietnam, for one thing. So it looked like the Vietnamese War was just up for grabs at that point. And all the talk about we were going to win in Vietnam was down the drain. Johnson would withdraw from the presidency right before Dr. King was killed. Bobby Kennedy comes into the race. There's the release on the report on causes of violence in the United States comes in that period. So all these things are happening in the country. And down in Memphis, you have this, what was evidently termed by the national media as this kind of piddly little strike going on. So they needed outside, the strike leaders realized that they needed outside support.
When a movement was going in a certain town, you would get maybe lesser known people to come in and have a rally than better known people to have a rally, but the ultimate was always to get Martin King to come in and rally, and that's what happened in Memphis. And he came against the advice of all of his staff, because we're organizing the Poor People's Campaign and we don't have time to go to Memphis. He said, but that's what the campaign's about, you know. Here again, economic justice. These men worked all week long under the most horrendous conditions you can imagine and still qualified for welfare, most of them, because they made so little, making 50 cents an hour, 40 cents an hour. If it rained, they didn't work. They had no bathroom privileges, no facilities. It was 2 steps above slavery.
You are demanding that this city will respect the dignity of labor. So often we overlook the worth and the significance of those who are not in professional jobs, of those who are not in the so-called big jobs. But let me say to you tonight that whenever you are engaged in work that serves humanity and is for the building of humanity, it has dignity and it has worth. All labor has dignity. But you are doing another thing. You are reminding not only Memphis, but you are reminding the nation that it is a crime for people to live in this rich nation and receive starvation wages.
He came into Memphis that night, and it was almost like